Welcome back to AV Veterans Talk. We're continuing our conversation with Danny Bazzell, this week's guest. So Danny, we're talking about flight test out there, and you're actually going to, part of the, with such a huge inventory, a lot of us, especially you have Blackbird Park there in Palmdale, which a lot of those aircraft belong to you?
They all belong to the Air Force.
They all belong to the Air
Force. Not
Joe
Davies, that's Palmdale side. Joe
Right.
Davies Air Park is all, and those may be Air Force or Navy assets that are on loan to the Joe Davies Air Park. But the three aircraft, the A-12, the SR-71, and the U-2 that we have there are all Air Force assets that belong to the museum.
I got you.
So that to kind of put it in context, the Flight Test Museum is an annex of the National Museum of the Air Force. Mm-hmm. It is owned, operated, and run by the U.S. Air Force. The employees out there, all two of them, are Department of the Air Force employees. Mm-hmm. They operate their museum on a budget of $1,200 a year. Yeah. So that's where the Flight Test Historical Foundation comes in, and that we are the funding arm for everything that goes on at the museum that they need money for. Yeah. The recent acquisition of the only surviving XB-47 prototype from Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois, that was a $200,000 project. The Air Force says, you want the plane, you figure out how to pay for it and get it, and we'll let you have it at your museum, mm-hmm. but we're not paying a penny. So Boeing stepped in, the Boeing company stepped in and donated the money to disassemble the XB-47, truck it all the way out here and reassemble it, and now we're in the restoration process on that. So when we talk about building a new museum, it is required that it be 100% funded through private donations. Right. The government, no tax dollars go into that. So we need to raise a total of about $7.75 million to completely fund the project, and it's a 4-phase project. Mm-hmm. Phase 1 is the environmental assessment of the land. It's a 34-acre site just to the southwest of the Century Circle at the main gate of Edwards. That Phase 1 environmental assessment is almost completed. We expect to have that completed hopefully by the end of this summer, if not sooner. Mm-hmm. That allows us to move forward with Phase 2, which is to construct the first 60,000 square foot hangar out at the gate to start housing our exhibits. And inside that hangar will be a larger STEM classroom to allow field trips for students to come out and actually, if you think about a group of students that are learning about engineering and aerospace and all that, coming out to the museum, sitting in the classroom, and then having a test pilot walk in that just finished a flight test regimen, or an instructor from the test pilot school, or a flight test engineer who's currently working in the field, come in and talk to them directly about the curriculum that they're learning, things that they're, how many times have you heard a kid say, this is algebra, I'll never use algebra in my life, why do I need to study algebra? Well, to have these highly qualified professionals that are in the industry come in and stand in front of the classroom and say, let me tell you what I just did today. Let me tell you about some of the projects I've worked on and what we're doing, how we're doing hypersonics, how we're doing vectored thrust and propulsions and all these things, and actually have these kids, like you said earlier in one of our segments about looking up at an astronaut wide-eyed going, this is an astronaut. Wow. Well, here you have a test pilot, that's talking to these students about what they're learning in class and how that relates directly to them. How can it not inspire them to continue on in a career in engineering? And we need engineers, we need technicians, we need...
It's amazing how I took a field trip of students from Joe Walker one time out to Edwards, and how important what you're saying is when it comes to how we inspire in a museum, to inspire young people. Because they went through a thing, and we were talking about Joe Walker out there, and we had a test pilot that was a NASA test pilot, and he went through the test pilot school, and he gave the odds of how they whittle that down, and the percentages, the odds of actually you becoming a test pilot, or when you look at the numbers across the board, they're only going to take like 4 guys to do that. And then you saw these young kids and their heads went down thinking like, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to do anything like that. And then he just leveled them, because he goes, I was a young man in the Midwest. I grew up in Nebraska, and I'm standing in front of you today as proof that you can make it, because I made it. And that means that every one of you in here can make it. And then all of a sudden, all the kids kind of just, back up.
And they need to be also reminded also that just going to the test pilot school isn't necessarily the only way. It's kind of like, I'll use the Super Bowl analogy, seeing as how that was yesterday.
Yeah.
What are the odds of a high school football kid playing in the Super Bowl? Pretty small.
Yeah.
And those odds of a kid sitting in an aeronautical engineering class in 12th grade becoming a member of the U.S. Air Force test pilot school is probably similarly small.
Yeah.
But unlike the Super Bowl, that kid could still go on and go to Embry-Riddle and get his master's degree in aeronautical engineering.
Absolutely.
Or go on to an ROTC program and become a pilot or an engineer or any of that. So there's so many other avenues available to them so that they still come out to places like Edwards and get to work on some of the coolest stuff we've ever designed and built. So it's not a all roads lead to one place. You have so many opportunities out there. You just need to apply yourself. And
it's happening every day.
And it is.
It's happening every day. I'm Bob Alvis, and thank you for joining us for this segment of AV Veterans Talk.